At the start of the year, Samsung launched the Galaxy S23 Ultra into the world, setting a benchmark for the rest of the industry to follow and play catch up with. Nearly 12 months later, we've had countless manufacturers release phones to try and take its crown. But have they gotten close? Let's find out in our 12-month review of the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Daniel here for SamMobile TV. Nearly 12 months now with the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and after countless updates to its camera, to its software, it's got a whole new version, One UI 6. This phone has gone from its incredibly high bar to another level completely. In this review, I'm going to break down the day-to-day, what it's like to use this phone over the course of a 12-month period. Taking it overseas as my main camera, using it to work on my business, and just general interactions that you have with this phone and the things that I've enjoyed that allow me to do those things. To do that, as usual, I'm going to break it down into 4 different categories. We're going to look at the design and the display and sort of how that design has held up over day-to-day use over a 12-month period. We're then going to look at the software. So how the software has actually changed and how it's gone from when it started to now what it is at the end of the year with One UI 6. Then we're going to look at the cameras, both in its improvements to its software, but also the output and what it has enabled me to have over the course of this year. And then we're going to finish with performance, with a real highlight of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. Let's kick it off with design and display. The design of the S23 Ultra when it launched seemed tame and uninspired. It largely stuck with the same design language from the S22 Ultra from the year before, which in turn pretty much borrowed design inspiration from the Note series before that. Squared off corners, more industrial feel, slightly curved display. We've seen it before, we know what it is. But to reduce it down to just that take isn't doing Samsung's engineers and design team any justice whatsoever. There's not much more that slab smartphones can do to become different from the others. In fact, I would argue that Samsung's Ultra lineup already has that point of difference compared to the rest of the smartphone industry. That boxier shape, that more industrial look and feel is something that no other manufacturer really has. And this is a very easy identifier that this is an Ultra Samsung phone. So with that differentiation existing, why would Samsung throw that out and start again? From a comfort standpoint, the refinements Samsung made to the Ultra definitely made it easier to hold and feel better in the hand. It still maintains the slightly curved display and back glass, which definitely suits the concave and the curvature of your hand, and the slightly curved metal frame also leans into that. Whilst it's a bit flatter compared to previous years, it's definitely also a lot thicker compared to, let's say, the Note 20 Ultra, which means it's going to have a much easier way to grip onto it. It's not going to feel so slippy and slidey out of your hands. Something else that really lends itself to comfort is the fingerprint placement. It's definitely a lot higher than, let's say, the S10 from years gone by, which means that it's going to feel a lot more natural and comfortable to access it. But leaning into that too is the speed and the accuracy of the ultrasonic scanner that's underneath the display. It's larger than what the S21 Ultra was, which means you have a bit more wiggle room over where you can place it to unlock it. It's definitely fast and it's comfortable where it is. Being under the display as well, it also means you get a near immersive screen and display to look at for all your content. It's really nice. That display too is a marvel to look at. Samsung has enabled this too with a very nice dynamic AMOLED 2X screen that has an adaptive refresh rate and is just a joy to interact and view. It might be lagging in peak brightness. From a day-to-day interaction standpoint, it's just a crisp, clear, all your photos will appear on it very, very nicely, and outdoors, you honestly haven't got a problem to worry about. So when people talk those numbers, Samsung's peak outdoor brightness still is enough and looks really good. And with the adaptive vision booster, you're getting accurate colors in bright conditions as well. Something that seldom gets spoken about in reviews of Samsung phones is the software. You see it in some of the smaller tech creators. They really try to accentuate what Samsung's strengths are in the software space. But I feel like a lot of the points and a lot of the positives that Samsung have in its software get missed by the bigger reviewers due to them potentially preferring other ecosystems. 6 months ago, One UI 5.1 was good. Samsung brought out a stack of new features to the S23 Ultra, which made it feel a lot newer and more advanced than anything we've had before. But over the course of the year, Samsung has been adding things to improve on that experience. We'll talk about the camera when we get to the camera section, but the way you interact with One UI has changed especially when you factor in that we now have One UI 6. Samsung has redesigned a large portion of the way you move and interact around the software. Things like the new expanded quick panel. Samsung has redesigned this to move things out that you use more frequently, like the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth toggles, and keep in the core section things that you'll be swiping and moving across to a little less frequently. I like that because it means the stuff you use all the time is in your face, and the stuff you don't necessarily use as frequent, you can slide through. They've also given you a new way to access it. A swipe from the top right corner brings the expanded quick panel down for quick access. You'll either love this or you'll hate it, but there's no denying it's definitely a different way of interacting. Other things too, like Samsung has made flight mode smarter, where when you toggle flight mode on and you press Wi-Fi and Bluetooth back on manually, it'll remember that. So the next time you interact with flight mode, it'll keep those two things permanently stayed on. Just for traveling purposes, it's going to be really convenient to have that peace of mind that you won't have to worry about it. My usage of the S23 Ultra is pretty consistent to how I've used my Samsung phones for the last few years. Of course, Samsung bring in features gradually that I slowly work into my day-to-day, but the core of what I use has been around forever. Edge panels, for example, are part of the fabric of my daily usage. I love expanding out the panel from, I've got it docked on the right-hand side, to show me my apps that I use that I've customized, to show me my contacts that I interact with frequently, and things like tasks and Smart Select to take a quick screenshot of a portion of the screen. All of those within the Edge panel are just things that I absolutely adore using, and it's so part of my habit that I couldn't be without it on any other phone if I were to switch to one. I'm also a big advocate of multi-window. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, I don't use multi-window when I use a Samsung phone. I really don't understand that take, because a lot of the times they're using a Samsung phone for a couple of months, but having a Samsung phone is more than just a couple of months of usage. It's knowing that multi-window is there, so when you need it, you can access it. I love pop-up windows as well. That kind of ties into Edge panels because I can bring in a pop-up window into my screen, and when I don't need it, with One UI 6, Samsung has borrowed a One UI 5.1.1 feature in that I can swiftly dismiss it off to a tab on the side for quick access later. And that whole pop-up experience is just so smooth, and I love how it doesn't interrupt the actual thing that I'm interacting with behind it. Something I always miss whenever I switch away from a phone that has it integrated is the S Pen. The S Pen, again, it's similar to the multi-window. It's not something you'll find yourself using every day. There's that moment when you need it where it's just so invaluable. For me, I love the option of taking out the S Pen and scribbling down a quick note on the always on display, and then saving it by automatically putting the pen back in, and it goes into my Samsung Notes. That type of function is just invaluable, and you will never find a phone on the market that is capable of doing that, that is as powerful as what the S23 Ultra is. I love it. Samsung DeX is ever present for me this year, whether that be me traveling overseas and being able to respond to emails on a larger canvas just from my phone, or whether having a portable setup in the dining room so I can interact with DeX and get some stuff done again, just from my S23 Ultra. This type of workflow is just invaluable to me. And DeX being as powerful as what it is just truly expands my capability of my S23 Ultra. And again, it's something that if I were to switch to a phone that didn't have DeX, I would miss it 100%. Overall, the software with One UI 6 in particular has matured quite nicely throughout the year. If you were to pick up an S23 Ultra now in its current state, the software and its capabilities would comfortably see you through the next 3 to 4 years, especially with the updates that Samsung are going to continue to give this line of phones. Lots gets said about the cameras on the S23 Ultra. A lot of people tend to unfairly judge individual aspects of the camera. They might point out the main camera is not as strong as this other main camera, or the ultra-wide lacks behind this ultra-wide, but they fail to understand that collectively, this hardware gives you so many options and is so consistent and flexible that it's not about an individual camera, it's about the sum and the collective of what they can do together. By now, we know what the hardware of this phone is in terms of its cameras, so I'm not going to recap any of that here because the phone's been out 12 months, we should know by now. But just to give you some view of the output, from the ultra wide all the way up to 10 times and beyond, you're getting a really consistent level of output across any camera that you decide to use. Across the year, Samsung has also enabled much better software to take advantage of these cameras as well. Of course, the main camera being 200 megapixel, Samsung has got some software that they turned on this year that enables a better 2x sensor crop. It was something they brought in last year with the S22 Ultra, but there was no button for it, and it still didn't feel like it was the finished article. This year in the August update, Samsung fixed that completely. Not only did they enable a 2x button in Camera Assistant, but they also improved the output of the 2x sensor crop. You can see the difference in the side-by-side here from July to August, that the 2x provides so much more detail than what it did before. And the good thing is if you don't have Camera Assistant, this 2x is still optimized, but obviously with Camera Assistant, put the button there, you're going to save yourself some time. In One UI 6, Samsung completely revamped the software in terms of its look and its feel. The thing I really noticed straight away was in the camera app, they removed and separated the high resolution from the aspect ratio, which is just such a smart take for them to do. You can now control them independently. Something that I've really been enjoying since it's come in is the leveler feature. For the longest time in One UI, we've had shot suggestions in the main photo part of the camera app. Samsung though has now enabled the leveler feature, which is very similar across all the other camera modes except panorama on the phone itself. You do need to have the grid lines turned on, but what I've found since having this switched on is that videos, I can keep them so much more stable and level thanks to the fact I've got this actual leveler feature on board. It lines it up with the horizon line, meaning you're going to get a nice aesthetically pleasing photo or video at the end. From an output perspective, Samsung with the S23 Ultra went for the slightly flatter, less contrasty, brighter shadowy output compared to the Fold 5 and even the base model S23s. No harsh shadows, stark contrast, just bright, pleasing photos that are consistent across all the cameras. In Italy, I brought along with me 4 Samsung flagships: the S23 FE, the Z Flip 5, the Fold 5, and of course the S23 Ultra. The thing I noticed is that the S23 Ultra always took the more pleasing shot, and it was more consistent across all of the photos that I took on all of them. For me, for that entire 2.5 weeks I was there, 99% of the time, I was reaching for the Ultra. I was reaching for the Ultra for its consistency, for its zoom range, and just the flexibility that something like this was able to give me. The other 1% was the Fold, and purely because I wanted to get some different perspectives that the Flex mode form factor was able to give me, but the majority of the time it was the Ultra that I was reaching for. The other thing that elevated that too was Expert RAW. Expert RAW and the Ultra combined is like a perfect combination, especially with the prowess of the hardware and the software processing of Expert RAW. You get some truly incredible shots from its output, whether it be taking photos of the Colosseum, whether it be Trevi Fountain, or whether it be in Lake Como. I got some incredible background worthy photos that wouldn't look out of place on a postcard. Something else that really helped too was the S Pen. Again, it's not just a productivity tool, it's also a functional tool for photography. Setting the phone down on somewhere flat, whether that be leaning it up against a pole, using the S Pen as a remote shutter, again, changes how you use it. It's a truly transformative experience using the S Pen with the S23 Ultra. Again, that no other phone has that natively inbuilt. The other aspect of the camera too is the video. The video for me has been probably the biggest experience that I've enjoyed this year. Largely, in fact, that I shoot all of these videos using the S23 Ultra. This is 4K portrait video right now, and it's really transformed how you can create content because you get extra detail that you can crop into afterwards and still get detail from the video. Again, going back to my trip to Italy, my wife and I vlogged pretty much the entire 2.5 weeks. We both have S23 Ultras. So the footage we're able to get from both of us was sharp, it was crisp, and most importantly, it was stable. The stabilization from the main camera on the S23 Ultra is phenomenal. I love the 2x wider OIS correction angle because it just gives me some smoother, stabler footage, especially as we go and follow our kids around. Kids don't stand still, kids are on the move, and you don't want to stop them from moving. So having a camera that is perfectly capable of staying still as you follow them means that you don't have to think about it. It's just good peace of mind. Now, is there room for improvement? Obviously. Samsung, if they wanted to, could probably chuck the best camera hardware into the Ultra that's been known on a smartphone. But it's more than just the best hardware. The Ultra needs to have a balance for everyone, not just for the people who love cameras, but for the people who need other forms of functionality as well. To put the best cameras in, you might drop the ball over here. And Ultra needs to be the best phone, not just the best at one thing. In saying that, it's more than just the hardware too. Samsung has enabled the Ultra with every software feature under the sun and incredible processing behind that. You truly do see the best of what Samsung can offer you with the cameras on the S23 Ultra, even if there individually are some better camera sensors that are out there right now. Something that truly transformed the fortunes of this phone is something that you can't actually even see from the outside. That is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. On the Android side, it's been some time since we've had a chipset that is capable of, I guess, keeping up with the iPhone's processors. The thing about the iPhone is that whilst they might have raw performance that outperforms everyone in a benchmark score, there's nothing that they really have underneath that supports that performance that everyday people will be able to take advantage of. As we saw in software, Samsung packs it full of features that truly take advantage of the power of the software. And I'm not just talking about productivity features like Samsung DeX or multi-window. I'm talking about its camera features too. You know, flawless 8K30 that has incredible stabilization and detail and no longer has the massive crop in. Or features like director's view in the camera that allow you to capture both your front and your rear cameras at the same time and get a live preview of the other 3 cameras that are on board, whilst also then being able to zoom into them whilst you're filming. Or single take, which is my personal favorite Samsung camera feature, where you can point the camera at anything for 15 seconds and it will then process a bunch of photos and videos in the back end using AI. That's all part of the performance package that the phone takes advantage of. The 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy is what has enabled this level of performance, no doubt about it. As we learned, the 4 Galaxy moniker is effectively an overclocked version of the standard 8 Gen 2. And that is what has allowed it to be a step above the other Android phones in that space of 2023. Samsung made a bold move this year, making this chipset a global release and putting this chipset in every flagship product that Samsung released for this year as well. It was a masterstroke. From an overall interaction standpoint, no hiccups. The software is fluid, the animations, lots gets said about that on X. I don't see it myself. I very much enjoy the fluidity of One UI, and the animations that Samsung has cultivated is nice. And you know, there's no stutters, there's no lag. The S23 Ultra is as flawless today as it was when I first got it. The battery life too. The 5,000 mAh battery is incredibly capable of keeping this phone sustained all day and a little bit beyond. Plus, you've got the power of 45-watt fast charging, which might not be the fastest charging in the world. It's still enough considering what else this phone is capable of doing. You'll still be okay with it. Overall, the S23 Ultra is a compelling package. Whilst it isn't the best at any single one thing, like you might not say, oh, it's got the best main camera or it's got the best charging, collectively as a unit, it creates what I like to call a team that is very, very hard to beat and is just the best overall. You don't look at them as individual components. You look at them collectively and how they perform and interact all together. You do have some individual factors that are probably the headliners: 10 times zoom, 200 megapixel camera, S Pen capability, One UI 6. They're the ones that will grab the attention, but it's the little things underneath that work together cohesively to create this Ultra package. And for that, with all of that together, this phone is elevated above the rest and, in our opinion, is definitely the phone of the year. Thanks for watching SamMobile TV. If you have enjoyed this review, please make sure you subscribe. We've got lots more reviews like this. Go check out the other videos on our channel. If you want Samsung news that is up to date, current, and the most comprehensive coverage of Samsung news on the internet, go check out our website as well. We have reviews, news, updates, everything housed there. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.